Welcome to another great Venture Cafe session, shaping the minds of tomorrow's innovators. My name is Neferteri Strickland. I'm the founder of Teachers and We're Benefit LLC, where we believe that Pennsylvania deserves a world-class Pennsylvania-educated workforce. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you to two amazing people sitting next to me. Andres Gonzalez of Play on Philly and Tiffany Copeland of First Hand here at the University City Science Center. Because I'm a fan of classical and orchestral music, I'd like to share with you a brief video to introduce Andres, if you don't mind, Jen.
Play on Philly is an organization that looks for communities that have little or no access to music education, high quality music education, and builds a community out of young musicians through the vehicle of an orchestra.
We run the program 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. We are taught our strings instruments, first and second grade, and then winds instrument at fourth and fifth grade. So at some point, at 7th grade and 8th grade, they should play together a Beethoven instrument. For example, I have seen people transform through the music.
It's given me a lot of patience and it's shaped my future because it's given me bigger opportunities.
I think since I didn't have a began to really believe in myself more and introduce me into my love for farming.
It's a team, so it's one child. How does like extended family?
We want our students to know whatever you do, whatever you aspire to, just be really good at it, excel at it, perfect it, be excellent at it.
We are convinced that this is the way to get our kids and raise them in a really good artistic musical level. This is what they deserve. This is a life mission, actually.
Be excellent. So most of this will be a conversational session. If you're in virtual land, please, you can use the chat function to ask questions or the raise hand feature, and you can unmute your mic and chime in. And for those of you that are in the room, feel free to just signal to us if you'd like to ask a question. So, Andres, I'd like to know, your Play on Philly, what's your gift to greater Philadelphia?
Well, I think the best, and the best thing that we can provide to the city is access. The majority of children's issues is through access. And we believe that if we give them access to high quality orchestral training, we can definitely change their life.
So I want to hear a little bit about your background, but I'd like to first introduce Tiffany. So Tiffany, there's no video for you. So Tiffany Copeland at First Hand, can you tell us about the organization, what role you serve, and then what's your gift to Philly for the program?
Sure. So I'm Tiffany. I'm actually a program facilitator for the First Hand program, which is a outreach of the University City Science Center, which we're all in right now. And the basis of the program is basically STEM education and like a hands-on style. And so what we offer to our students, similar to what Andres was saying, is access to the tools and the education here, and also the ecosystem of the Science Center, and kind of just helps them to learn about different stuff, fields, and tech that they never would have been exposed to.
Amazing. What's the gift? What's the gift?
The gift of First Hand Philly. I would say the gift is probably just the chance to like leave school in the middle of the day and do snacks.
I can see as a 10th, 11th grader, it's like, thank you. So tell me about your background and how you came to be a part of the organization.
So I'm a teacher, certified social studies education, 6 to 12 in Pennsylvania and Delaware. So I've experienced teaching to middle school and high school students, and I kind of like was looking for something different while I pursued my doctoral degree in school psychology. And it's a really good mix because it's not as hard as like what a lot of our classroom teachers these days, especially in the pandemic, have to face, but it's also just a different style of education. And it helps me to be able to handle the rigor of school and also still be served in our community.
How'd you come on board?
So through the Science Center, and it's my full-time job.
Thank you for sharing. So Andre, same for you, are you classically trained? Are you just a conductor? How'd you come on board with your organization? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, I'm a trumpet player and also orchestra conductor, and I personally need to say that I'm very lucky to work for an organization that get inspired in the organization that I was training my entire life. So I'm from Venezuela. I just moved to the States 4 years ago for various reasons. My country is in the middle of a huge crisis, and I had to kind of run away with my family to the States. And although, it creates amazing opportunities to me and my family. So in Venezuela, we have an amazing project that provides free tuition, classical music training. Right now, there are around 600,000 kids in this program. 600,000. It's just insane. The entire country is full of, youth choirs and children's orchestra. Everywhere you go, you can find an orchestra. And because of that, and many countries in the world have the inspiration to create their own programs, with their own challenge, of course. Because, every single country, every single city has different challenges. And I met the founder of Play on Philly 11, 12 years ago when he went to Venezuela to get this inspiration from the source. And then when he moved to the States, I came here, let's see what can figure it out. Like, okay, I have a job. It might work for you. So, currently, music director. This is all connected. I don't know how, but it's all connected.
Intelligent design.
Yeah.
So 600,000
Yes.
to the 300 that you have here.
Yeah.
How can we at least provide some balance?
This is hard for me. I mean, all my orchestral dimensions are 200 kids on the stage. Always. It's the size, it's the standard size of my orchestra, in my mind. And this is what I want for Philadelphia. And this is what I'm working for. This is what we're working for in Philadelphia. And we're projecting to have a children's orchestra made with 200 kids on the stage. Because this is what would be normal. And I said it, this is why those kids deserve the same opportunity. Because I had all those opportunities, now I got a job in a different country.
So I just picture in my mind being there and seeing those young people, feeling the energy as they play. So absolutely want to be supportive of that. What are the ways that we can support your program?
Sure. Well, there's so many ways. Of course, besides donating, and I think we need to believe what our communities can do. I would say that's the perfect. And somebody in my country, the founder of the project that I was training, he had a team, and he was totally convinced that people in Venezuela could play classical music at the highest level. Nobody will believe that in any other country in the world. And he was convinced about that, and he did it. And so I think not because our communities, in my case, the Latinx community, and for Leonfield's case, we serve the majority, the community that we serve is Black African American community, not because our community are, not used to this type of music in the house. They cannot live it. I mean, why? Because somebody said that someday, it doesn't make sense, at least not to me. So what we're trying to do is find our own sound, right? Like how our own orchestra is like. And yeah.
Wow. And to be able to see yourself in a role is really important. Those young people see themselves as professionals, as musicians, is really important. And the same thing with scientists, right? So you're kind of incubated here in the University City Science Center. What's your support like? What are the needs, or what are the desires for sustaining your work?
I would say, like you said, we are incubated here at the Science Center. So there's so many different lab companies, like startups, tech, and just people doing a lot as far as innovation is concerned. But I also think what we need is more integration, and it's a goal, of course, of actual Black and brown companies that are smaller within the community actually support what we're doing here at the Science Center as well and have easy exchange. Because our students not only get to see like this great scientists that's like, you know, developing research and development, and they look like me, they're brown, they're black, you know, and also there's a small business owner that, you know, is selling bath bombs on Broad Street, and they're here too, you know, and like Andres is saying, like a range of different options and like ways to see themselves in the future that they might not have seen just at home or just within the walls of their classroom.
It's really important. And so when I look at the two of you all and I think about your programs and the impact that you're having in your own right, I only think about the opportunity for overlap and intersection. You hear STEM a lot, but there are all those components for STEAM, adding the arts into STEM education. So the personalities, I think, just naturally blend. And if you think about professionals in the science field, some of the extracurricular time, the culture that they're into, classical music, going to the theater, etc. But to be able to overlap it and provide that experience for young people. So who are some of the partners within the city that help you broaden your reach, you know, Philly and understand?
Well, sorry, I did the person, sorry. So, and for us, in terms of, I mean, you know, I can say honor is a key. And, you know, partnership, we have a lot of great partnership. And currently we are working actively with PCMX, Philadelphia Chamber Music Society, and with ASO Audience, which is a kind of like an incubator of young professional musicians. They provide them with the performance opportunity. And they are trying to work as well with their community side. So bring them up to play and feed and give us specific audience that we feel that our students and our community can connect with, which is the thing is, as I said, is the most important. But we need to kind of break up this classical music base, you know, right? I would say the same thing. We are working in changing how the Kimmel Center might look, how the Kimmel Center sounds like. Right? There is something going on already. Orchestras like Philadelphia Orchestra are making an amazing change, providing opportunities to new generation of composers, but we need to get active on this change as well. So we have a lot of good partnerships, and I think should be.
Our partnership is definitely very centered around our school partners. Like for example, Paul Robeson High School, they send us a lot of students, you know, and it's always a way that we always try to look for ways to integrate what we're doing, like into what the schools are actually doing already. So it's like, you know, the kids can come here to firsthand, but when they're here, they're in a professional environment, they're getting paid, they're receiving stipend, right? But when they go back to school, it's a credit for them. It's an exercise class. So I think that our school partnership is something that we really have very strong for the first-hand program. And then secondly to that would definitely be the mentorship partnerships that we have with companies that are here in the Science Center. So for example, we have a Visible Sentinel, right? We took the students this past summer on a tour. So it's 3 high school students. They were alumni in the first-hand program from their middle school or earlier years. They got a chance to like actually tour the Visible Sentinel and kind of see like, what does it look like for a company that's making PCR tests and detect like newborn pathogens or something? And it's like, that's a big concept, I feel like, to kind of conceive of as a high schooler. And the students were just saying, like, I had no idea that this stuff was here, like right down the street from me. If you imagine, like, I go to school 37th Market Street, but there's like this company here figuring out how to like keep my food safe. You know, so I think that the mentor partnerships will definitely be the second best thing about the program. And like I said, hopefully like some of those community partnerships will continue to develop as our program ages.
So I'm not from Philadelphia, so I'm always in awe of the city and the treasure that it holds. So I know in the room there are a couple of supporters of these organizations. So who here right now is supporting Play on Affiliated? Now I am. So if you hands online too. So and that's what I was going to next is online. I see there's a shout out to Andres, Anna, Mayor. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please drop it in the chat. And then the first hand in the room, who's a supporter or collaborator at first hand. See a lot of hands.
Have a little squad.
Online, the same thing. Are you a supporter of first hand, or maybe now you are a supporter of first hand? Please feel free to identify yourself. Thank you. So, again, just being that fresh set of eyes in the city, wanting to understand how support from around the region, what does that look like for you? Does any of your programming extend out to Montgomery County, Chester, Delaware? Is that currently on your roadmap, or is it something that you have in work?
I would say possibly you guys think. In the future, first stand around the world.
First hand all over the world.
But
TM.
But I would definitely say like our focus has been here, a lot in West Philadelphia. We want to make sure we're serving the community of students that may be like under-resourced, underserved. And so a lot of times that is students that are attending school in the Philadelphia school district or local charters, things like that. So that's like the population that we really want to focus on helping, like Andres is saying, it's all about access. What are we giving our students? And not to say that, like, of course, county schools, big agencies don't need more of programs like this, but I would say like our priority is here, and then in the future, as we grow, we can expand out.
So focusing on that priority, what is the difference that coming in contact with your staff, your programming, what difference does that make to that individual as you see?
As an individual, I would say it kind of expands your world, right? It expands your world because, like I was saying, like if you are kind of siloed, like I hear people who are from Westfield all the time call it like the island of Westfield. Because it's really just, it's like that. It's like an island. It's like, I'm here, this is what I see every day, this is what I do every day. It's like, I feel like even just coming to the science center and stepping outside of your comfort zone, so we make our students do a lot, like step outside of your comfort zone, and that opens your world up. So
the same thing, the reach, what does it look like geographically in the region, and then what type of impact do you tend to have on these?
Sure. Well, we are now in terms of based on Westfield, the island of Westfield, Southwest, and as well. And this is one. We have a music center also in Center City, which is a kind of like a community model, because we receive students from across the city. No matter where you come from, no matter your school, it's the only music community center model that we have yet. And I would say, because we also are part of a big organization, which is the Sistema, and the name as the project Venezuela, Sistema USA. So right now there's more than 100 firms like Café in the United States. So somehow are interconnected. So I don't want to say that they are extension of each other, but they are interconnected. So I would say everyone should do the best they can do on their own area, and trying to go with that.
That's interesting. So, we do have the constraints of the pandemic, but possibly that exchange in culture that could be interesting to see. So the stakeholder groups that you engage with, I'm sure they're the students themselves, they're educators and administrators, the parents, and then kind of general community members. What is a interaction that you can recall from one of those stakeholder groups where you had to talk to them about the importance of the program, so we can kind of get an idea of what that sounds like?
So students count.
Students count. Okay, all there.
Okay, students count. Right, okay, got it. I would say conversation. Oh, let me see. I would say I'm going to shout out Morgan Easton from Paul Robeson High School. She's my favorite student, and I don't say that lightly. But she is someone that we've had since the 10th grade, and now she is applying for colleges, has to like navigate like the virtual world of school, starting to do like have her own hair business where she's like making money on the side. And at the same time, she's been coming to the First Hand Lab and like helping me to develop a program to have younger high school students also start their own small businesses. So she's being paid still because that's the incentive, right? That's the access. But at the same time, she's given the opportunity to like mentor and like have an engagement with younger students that may have similar tracks to her. And we just sit down and we talk all the time. We have check-in, we have like planning meetings, we come up with class content. And she just always says, like, I feel like you changed my life. Like, I feel like you're someone that, like, I want to be in constant communication with for the rest of the time I'm going to pursue my educational career, whatever it is that I'm doing. Like, can I have your phone number? Can I talk to you? And she sends me messages, you know? And I feel like it's hard to keep track of what every student's doing, but those individual ones that are kind of special and that they show the effort and that they're consistently reaching out, if we can't ignore them. We have to like feed the mouth of the one that wants the word, right? So
Closed mouth, don't get fed.
close mouth, don't be fed.
So we talked about your partners. We brought up students as the stakeholder group. And for the example, what does the runway look like for her? And what do we need to do as stakeholders, community members, to support her in her growth once she's handed off from First Hand?
I would say definitely like mentorship, like I said, is super important. Like she's considered me like a mentor, but I think that like even through platforms like this, at Venture Café, where we have like, a bunch of Black innovators all coming together, like the opportunity for her to meet other individuals that may have similar mindsets to her, or if she's interested and she wants to go to for nursing. So actually like coming to a Venture Café night that's focused on healthcare, talk to a nurse, talk to someone actually doing that job to learn about it. And then to even explore and be like, maybe this is something that I like, maybe I want to do something a little bit different. So I think like being involved, like getting involved, like even it's important to attend events like this and like just be present and find out actively like, who are the people in the community that are working to open up these doors for students.
So who's your stakeholder group?
Well, I think everyone plays a very important role in the organization. Of course, everything is, as I said, student-based institute. But I would say the visionaries, they are the mass. They are putting everything. They are with the kids every single day, and they're the final and I would say the most important at the bottom level that goes direct to the students. All the information, the way that we wish them to project themselves. So I would say the visionaries are the mass, for me, the mass. They are the heroes because they do everything exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the teachers, we love the teachers.
Yeah. And yes.
So what's needed to sustain them in that role?
That's great. I think that's a great question.
Solve the problem.
That's a great question. I mean, that's a question that we always ask ourselves, especially now since the pandemic started. That we have to switch to virtual program for a year and a half, and then oh my God, how can we teach a second grade playing the violin with not even tuning the instrument? I'm not talking even about how to put the bow down. It's just tuning the instrument. It's the most basic thing that happens in the first minute of your class.
Yeah.
But you cannot practice if you're out of tune. So it's a great question. And I would say student base is my thought right now. If we can as a city pull out all the classical music activities from center cities and put it in West Philly, it will help a lot. I think it's so attached to this and world that you need to go to Kimmer Center in order to get this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't find it anywhere. Or you won't find the same level of good things you will see there. So I think we need to bring them to the community, whoever is that. I'm talking about a specific person or organization. Whoever is that, we need to bring them out, put in an office, students, from the teacher, having them playing together. And, you know, yeah, and we try to do it all the time with PCMS and Australians and partners, for example.
So to me, that kind of sounds like a different way to look at access. Giving those professional instrumenters, orchestral, first chairs, access to their community, because it is their community. So thinking about the age groups that you serve, what does it look like for
K through 12.
K through 12? And then for first hand,
We're 6 to 12.
so what do you want that young person to come to you? Understanding, having familiarity with, because they're coming to kindergarten, one year, recognize their ABC. What do you want them to come to you knowing or understanding, believing?
I wish, this is my wish, and we do everything around
Which
it.
is the next question.
Yeah, my God, I'm sorry. I want. I want, yes, and with it, to see themselves in the older students, at least, in the older. I think that's our story, and we're working on that. Actually. We are trying to bring, the older students as a section leaders. They're not anymore like I'm a first bar, you're a second bar. I'm the section leader, and I'm here to help. This is what I'm here, right? And then if you're a second grade, you can get like me all the way through 12th grade and divided, and you will be fine. Nobody will say anything to you, right? That's our first goal.
So when I think about workforce development, I never think about possibility, but it's a thing. To have a professional career, right? So once they complete your program, or once they leave you, what's their runway? What's the opportunity?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it might be sounds weird, but we're not training professional musicians. We're training better here through music. So we are not expecting all of our students being musicians in the future. I mean, there's no way that that we can put that out there. There's no way that would happen. But definitely we want those kids being doctors, engineers. Why not president? And seeing everything through the lens of the music, because it changed everything. It put you team effort and the music. When you're part of the orchestra, you start thinking because you're creating beauty with other people. So.
And what about that's transferable?
That's an emotional. That was good. I mean, a lot of it is transferable, because it's like you were saying, that creativity that's required for you to possibly work on a musical piece or to alter something. It's the same thing when you're designing, or it's the same thing when you're working in making a prototype for something. You're not ever just stuck with the one version of that thing. You're always working on it and reiterating it, and it's at the end of the day, when we have our students come to us, we want them to be open-minded, and we want them to feel okay, if this doesn't come out the way you wanted to the very first time, it's okay. It's all right. We can make it better. And I think a lot of times students get discouraged because they have so many grades and GPA and this and that. It's I think a really cool part about nursing is there's no A's, we're not grading you. There's homework sometimes, but it's independent study, and it's we're not really assessing you on your ability to pass or fail. It's more so what do you bring to the table as an individual, and how can we help nurture that?
Mm-hmm. So I'm familiar with your amazing program.
Yeah.
So we've had conversations about what partnership internships, job opportunities look like, how important those relationships are. In your mind, what can be brought to the table by way of relationships and resources to help build that out?
I would say, just like you were saying, as far as the internships and resources in the long run, I would say the company's just being open-minded to the idea of like high schoolers or even like older middle schoolers being in their space. Because I think it's like there's a stigma of like, if I'm not a teacher, I'm not an educator, I have no idea how to be with kids, you know? And it's like, that's a big part of my job is to like meet with like these companies and like listen to what they do every day. Like you're a designer, or this one, that one. I'm a social studies teacher. I teach science, I teach social studies, right? So like, it's okay, it's possible for you to learn how to like impart what you do on a student. It just takes a lot of patience. So I think the patience of those individuals that are in position to provide opportunities like internships for our students is like the best thing to ask for. Yeah.
So we're looking at the clock and it's time for the wish question. So what do you wish?
What do I wish? I have to use a good one because I'll take wishes lately. What do I wish? I wish for all students, especially students of racial and ethnic minorities, to have an opportunity to discover what the things are they're good at. Yeah.
What does it take to make that happen? What does it take to make that real in your mind from where we are now?
What I think it takes is, like I was saying, like a rehashing of the processes that we use to really train and educate our students, our kids. And like, I think even programs like Play on Play and Firsthand, it's like, these are non-traditional ways of education. And it's not the traditional, like you're sitting in front of class and teachers talking at you, you're like, you're tired, you got there, you haven't had this food in your stomach all morning. It's something that's different, you know? And I think that we're so stuck in our ways as a society, and that it's gonna take a lot of like uncomfortableness and a lot of like growing pains in order to learn that like, it's not all about just the textbook. So, yeah.
Wish.
I
We
wish.
got it ready.
My wish is thousands of kids in Glenfield. Yeah, thousands, right?
By when?
No,
Make a smart goal here.
then my CEO will tell me right away. No, I would say, you know, provide what we do to more kids. This is my wish. Not think of this 300, which is amazing, by the way. That, you know, with my 600 out of my mind from my country, it's just impossible to not even think about it, right? Yeah, that's my wish.
I want to help with that. Like, I accept it. So what is it going to take to achieve that? And then we need time more here.
Well, I mean, in Venezuela took, this example, took more than 40 years. So it's not easy. I mean, it will take years. You know, it's about creating a culture. It's about, I always talk, I mean, I always say to my colleagues, I mean, we are literally changing the world. That's what we're doing. I mean, you don't change the world in one day. It takes time. You know, you need to talk to people. You need to convince people that, yes, we can do it. Are you sure that you're from Venezuela? Yes, I can do it. It's like, you know, it's like this type of things. And it would take skill for sure. And
So I played saxophone, tenor, baritone, alto, soprano during the day in school. And I remember when they started full funding for the arts, full funding for the music. And this is so life-changing. It has such an impact. Why do you believe that there isn't the support like you've seen in your home country? What do you think the disconnect is?
well, I would say, you know, every country has different challenges, right? And I think this type of program has an amazing capability to adapt to each challenge, right? Even in our music centers, on each school, we have different challenges because, you know, there are different families, there are different locations. So, we're so fortunate to have to come with a concept that we can, and there's people who really want to help us to keep growing and keep helping in the way that we believe is the real, you know, agent change.
So if there was someone listening or someone in this room that could fast track that 40 years, you said that we're now together. 50,000 students, what would you say to them beyond it's tangibly as possible, what's the value proposition? What are we gonna do?
One of the first things that our founder and the organization has been doing since year one is doing an investigation, a scientific investigation about how the brain of the kids work. And it is true that it helps, the music helps them in their executive functions. And it creates a lot of discipline. I mean, and this is the most important thing, then they're bringing this to their house. They're bringing this to their family, to their community. And this is when these programs pay off.
So my children both had headphones on the stomach for classical music when they were in utero because of what the study said, right? So there's again synergy in seeing here that in my mind, sitting here listening sounds like an opportunity. So the science, the research that is happening, what bells or whistles or thoughts go off in your head?
Well, I mean, I'm in school for psychology. I'm doing psychology one day, so I'm trying to be quiet while he's talking about executive function.
You don't. You have a microphone. And with your wish, you got a little close. I know this.
I would say definitely that the sciences and the arts are things that are in research to figure out how do they hone those neuronal connections more in students while they're in development, you know, and it's hard because that's why school psychologists are important, right? It's like, what are the evidence-based things that you're saying? Like, what are we doing in the schools? What are we doing in out of schools? Like, that actually works. And it's like, all right, you want to do yoga with your students in front of the classroom. We all know how beneficial that can be, mindfulness, but are you doing it for 3 minutes? Are you doing it for 5 minutes? Is it all the students? Is it some of the students? And like those real intricacies, I think, as far as like shaping the minds of tomorrow, I think that like it takes more than just saying like we're gonna try this new math program in our school and see if the kids respond. Like it's very hard stuff. It's not easy to say, okay, I want to figure out how to fast track a kid's executive functioning. It's not, there's no cure all, there's no one all. And so I think as like research continues to develop, that we'll realize more that the sciences and the art are things that students need. And they always get pushed back, right? Keystone, ESSA, whatever the case, they're testing reading, they're testing math. What about science? What about social studies? What about music class? How to read music, right? So I think that like we'll hopefully, that's my wish, the shift will come that we'll learn more about how science and art can really unlock that missing thing.
So this section here is about innovation. Right, we're here to talk about innovation. Maya, I saw your hand.
I just feel moved to say something, but go ahead.
No. I'd love to have some.
Well, you know, yeah, it's inspired
There's a
by
microphone.
what you both are saying. Like, I think the idea of like beauty that came up and just like the creativity that you both talked about is like, we get in this data society where we're like, well, how many instruments do you put in the hands of how many students, right? How many scientists do your students need, right? Things like that. But something Andres, you said is like, I want the students to become doctors, and you're like, well, that's not a violinist. And that's really profound because it's saying that like hope, beauty, things like that, how do you create a program that is actually driven by those things is really profound and something that this entire city could be inspired by, like program development wise. Like, is your program doing that? That metric is like profound to me, right? Yeah. Well, you said it, so.
I'm a firm believer that what's measured gets done.
Yeah.
And if we want beauty, if we want inspiration and hope, we have to tether it to something that's a priority, something that's tangible. So does anyone have any thoughts or ideas about tethering this amazing opportunity to something that is a driving force in this that we serve? Give a microphone.
Thanks. It's very interesting to me that the two of you are sitting here together And one has a concentration in music education, and the other one has a concentration in other types of academia. The studies that I've seen tie music education into advanced or improved academic abilities across the board. And so I think that connection is there. I do community development in North Philadelphia. And what is done here at the Science Center with Tracy and with Jen, who's carrying on this work that Tracy has started, I think is a tremendous asset to the city. And the connection between these two, it's interesting to me that Andres, you took a younger age group as a starting point. And Tiffany, you took an older age group as a starting point. And one feeds into the other. You know, the ability to think critically, reason logically. That's the foundation of that is in music education. One of the advantages that West Philadelphia has is that you have 3 actual universities with Philadelphia College of thank you. And so because of the relationships between those institutions and the schools, potentially there is that advantage to the students coming through. Other parts of the city are not so fortunate. And I'm in a part of the city that is not. However, one of the reasons that I come here is because I'm trying to develop a model. We're in Temple University's area. We're actually in what I put in the bullseye in more ways than one. We're between the academic and medical campus where I do my work. And so the tie-in there to the local community could be significant. And so I'm watching what they're doing here and stealing whatever I can as we build a model up there, because this is good stuff. The problem is that inequality. And so whereas you're tied into the local school community here at the grade school and high school level, Temple is doing work in certain areas there, but we really need a comprehensive, holistic approach up there in order to have an impact, I believe. And Temple is the partner. Temple is the partner. And it's not just this. It's in so many more areas of life that you could tie this together and improve things. So that's a long way to ask this question. And the question is, you're very tied into the schools out here, apparently, from listening to you. What about community associations, local community associations for summer programs and filling that void between June and September and getting students involved who might not necessarily otherwise have access, but who this would be a foundational step for? And I'm asking you this as a former piano student in St. Brenda's School, instructed by Sister Rose Marie.
Yeah, I would say we do like have our foot in the door of some like local organizations that do like summer programming, like Sunrise, right? And then also we do have a school partner that's up like in the northeast area, plus East School. So we've been like working on how we can expand and like open the door for other parts of the state to participate in our programs. Like this past summer, we actually opened up our summer program to our like Instagram following, and we also sent it out to like the STEM ecosystem, which works with the school district to implement STEM programming. And we were able to get like a lot of students from like all over the city. And then I think you talked about it, like sometimes that retention can be hard through the summer, and we're continuing to work with the students on that. But I think that the start is for sure to figure out how we can expand a little more, and then those relationships will get stronger over time.
Are you in a, I'm sorry, excuse me, are you in a position to go into other areas of the city? Because if you are, I'm going to have to tie in some folks.
Yes, we are in the position to go in other areas of the city for sure.
Andres, your organization?
We're so lucky to provide 6 weeks of summer camp. It's open for every student in the city. All day, music center, summer camp, of course. They will play a lot, that's the only thing, a lot, their instrument, but they will learn a lot. It's 6 weeks, all day at Temple University. Yes.
They go forward.
Of course. And it's for first graders, or race first graders through 12.
May I ask you, is there a fee?
It's free.
It is free.
It's free. There is a small participation fee, I think this is how the term call it, that is free. They don't need to pay anything for the session. It's 2 sessions, 3 weeks each.
So
You have before and after here? You're working here.
What's that?
You have before and after here?
Is, I think it's from 8 to 5, 8 a.m. through all the way to 5. Yeah.
So that's a concern, right?
Yeah, it
So
is.
what are some other concerns, the cost, the participation that could?
Yeah, I mean,
Person allowed.
if families are in a position economically where they have difficulty meeting the fee, there are ways. I mean, you know, there are people that can make a phone call and somebody cuts a check and that takes care of that. So there are ways to do it. There are no, I don't consider that to be an impediment at all.
So you never know who's in the room at Venture Cafe, you never know who's online, right? So we have 2 kind of barriers to entry for students or challenges. Are there any other concerns that you all can think about that they can go back and ideate about how to overcome to increase participation, sustainability of their program? And in the chat, if you're online, please feel free to use that. Are there any other barriers that they should think about how they can mitigate? Yes.
Well, as a part of the first team, another barrier that we use around to is transportation. How do your students get to Temple?
Yeah, I mean, transportation is a huge barrier. And this is one of the reasons that it's been hard for us to open a music center, a community model in Westview. Because then we need to provide all, transportation to all those students. And when I say all of them, as you hear already, I'm not talking about 15, right? This moment we're projecting a large number of students and making it sustainable, of course. So unfortunately, for the summer camp, we don't provide transportation.
So that was going to be my question. And so again, as a solution, there are organizations that can access funds for SEPTA trans passes. And there are organizations where people are involved, they can talk to people at SEPTA that they know for getting a group rate on, I mean, there are things, there's nothing that can't be overcome, nothing. It just depends on who's running the show, wherever they are, and how aggressive they want to be about getting it done and not allowing excuses to derail the project.
And it's absolutely priority. Right? So is this a priority?
I live, I'm sorry, excuse me for interrupting. I live in an area of the city where I have 15-year-olds who are murdering one another literally in the middle of the day over nothing at a rate that is approaching genocide. There isn't anything that can't be done to address this issue. It's just a matter of what are your priorities, and do you have the willpower and the backbone to step up and get it done.
So I would never ask one individual to attempt to boil the ocean, but you all shared what your wishes are. What are you willing to communicate to those in the room and online that if we support your program, here is the impact that you are working towards for the city?
Okay, so I mean, by doing what we do, I think we are, taking out of this free time where most of the children have to do all the bad things that happen in the street, unfortunately. When that happens after school or during the summer, it's like an unattended to the children because of parents need to go to work and all the things that might happen around this situation. So by providing this, we are definitely taking them out of this dangerous situation.
For people in the room, you read that, sorry.
For people in the room and that are online, if they support firsthand, what is firsthand sharing that their intention is to give this? If the student participates, here is what we are working to help them.
Okay, I would say definitely continue to work in the STEM field or interest in the STEM field. Or even like an internship, like we were talking about earlier, interest in even a trade. Like there's work with like schools that focus on trade, like the workshop school. So like maybe it would be more so telling the parents of the kids that your student will walk away from the program feeling like they're inspired to take on more opportunities like what they've had with us. I think it doesn't stop with being the first-hand student one time and then you go home and then that was fun. Oh, they're all summer. It's like no, like staying continuously engaged is definitely what we would want the students to walk away with.
So want to give you an opportunity for any last thoughts before we close. If either of you share any last thoughts that you'd like to impart on.
Last thoughts. I would say just thanks for the platform and thank you to everyone that joined because I feel
There's someone that wants to share. Sir. Greg, would you like to share with us before we close?
Okay, thank you, Greg. We are going to continue to resume and we'll soon be wrapping up, but just one moment, please.
okay. Last thoughts I would say just like I said, thank you for the platform. I feel like the entire idea of having a Black innovators talk or discussion, whether it's about education or food or inventions, whatever the case may be, it's more of it is needed and more just these conversations happening is needed. And I appreciate everyone's participation and this interest in the work that I'm doing.
Well, thank you for inviting me to this amazing place. I'm falling in love with this floor, by the way. Yeah, I just want to say that just come to one of our concerts. Get there, just give us an applause. Well, not to me, to the children, to the young musicians. Give them an applause, and I think that's the best way that we can also support it.
Consider it done. So Andres Gonzalez, a play on Billy and Tiffany Copeland at firsthand of shaping the minds of tomorrow's innovators. My name is Neferteri, Strickland of Teachers and we will see you next time at Venture Café.